How's it going out there today, boys and girls in sporting land? This is JPC. I am the outlaw of college football, and this is the home of the Common Joe and Common Sally. No, even more so than all those dastardly media talking heads. And today we got a special guest with us, my first guest on this show. Surprise, surprise, it's Johnathan Lewis, one of my podcast partners. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, real quick, Jonathan, then we'll get started.
All right, so podcast is called College Football with Johnathan Lewis. Obviously, it's really long, so I'm pretty sure we'll put the name and the link in the description below. Other than that, if you like watching college football, mainly prediction videos, a little bit of stories, definitely a lot less abrasive than what JPC puts on here. So if you're an analytical person, maybe check it out. And also if you're into recruiting as well, especially in the off season. Other than that, that's about it.
All right. Well, today, class, we're going to step in here today and address the impending college football playoff committee uh, selection show that's going to be on tomorrow night. I guess, what is it, 7 o'clock
I think it is
Central Time?
7 I think. Yeah.
Okay. It's either 6:30 or 7 Central, somewhere along in there. But I just want to jump in here real quick and get your thoughts on um, what you think the top six should be, the first four and then the last two out, and maybe even talk about what we think the committee's going to do. So I'll let you get started.
All right, so number one, I'm not used to going first, so this would be interesting. But if you have it already, make sure to leave in the comments below what your top six are if you're watching this video, because I'm interested to see what people have as well. So, anyways, do you want me to get started on number one and go down, or number six and go the opposite?
Probably
Which way?
better do number six because that's like a it's like
I
a
got you.
bill.
All right, so well, I mean, everybody knows what number one is, but no, we'll start off at number six. Number six will be definitely one of my most controversial numbers here, and that's going to be Cincinnati. I know a lot of people want to hear them two, three, or four. I'm basing my rankings off of a couple of things. It's obviously going off of number one, who you played, right? That has to be considered. I don't care what anybody says. You can't just put anybody that's undefeated in the top. Otherwise, UTSA would be like fourth right now. Is UTSA deserving of being a playoff team? Being a playoff team? No. But either way, I do have Cincinnati at number six. They have one top 25 win over Notre Dame. I think they beat, I believe it was Indiana as well before the Notre Dame game. Other than that, I can't find a reason to position them above that. And I'm only going off of what I've seen this past week and before. They're struggling with teams they shouldn't be struggling with, right? They beat Notre Dame convincingly, yes. I do give them that. But there's teams above that, which I'll get into here in a minute, and give you the reason why I position them there. Now, do you want to go and give your number six, or do you want me to give my whole list?
Yeah, just go ahead and give your whole list, and I'll just elaborate on it.
All right, so number five. I have Alabama at number five. I don't have them in the top four yet. Yeah, I know it's going to call, and I'm an Alabama fan, so hopefully this holds some weight to this. Alabama lost to a Texas A&M team. I get it. Texas A&M is now ranked in the top 25, but you still can't get over the fact that Texas A&M has two losses, and one of them is to Mississippi State. That has to account for something right now. Now, in the future, things can move around. So I'm going off of right now and what's happened in the past. They have two losses and do what?
Mississippi State did beat two ranked teams, though. They beat Texas A&M and Kentucky.
Yeah, I give you that. And Kentucky is doing what? Falling apart, like we knew they would. So just my opinion. So I have Alabama. So I have Cincinnati at six, Alabama at five. I have Ohio State at four. Ohio State probably has the best looking loss of the season to Oregon, who only has one loss as well in the Pac-12, which is to Stanford. I get it. Stanford's not a great team, whatever. Oregon still went to the shoe and still beat Ohio State at home, right? So, but Ohio State does have, they have one top 25 win, if you look at it. But the way they look right now, in the past couple of games, C.J. Stroud, Trayvon Henderson, the running back, and the defense finally getting it together. To me, they're one of the most improving teams week to week from where they were at the beginning of the season. So I'm putting Ohio State at four. Number three, I have Oklahoma. This one I was torn with because Oklahoma's had moments to where they looked like crap, even with Caleb Williams, hence the Kansas game. I get it. I get it. They've struggled with teams all season. But the fact is they are undefeated. They are beating Power 5 schools in the Big 12, so don't give me the Cincinnati stuff. I'm letting you know right now, you're not going to convince me. But either way, Oklahoma, look, I can't penalize somebody for being undefeated, right? In the Power 5. That's my mindset behind this. And they've beaten a top 25 team in Texas, which I get it. I think they have, 3 losses now. It's hard for me to overlook the fact that they're undefeated. Caleb Williams is on a roll, and the defense, well, it's easier to say that the defense is looking better, but in reality, the offense to me is starting to make the defense look better because of Caleb Williams and his style of play. Either way, that's my number 3. Number 2, the next 2 are not going to be a surprise. Number 2 to me is Michigan State, and it's not even close. Michigan State has 2 top 25 wins. They beat Michigan. Look, it was a close game. Michigan State had to come back and win it. But the fact is, Kenneth Walker is a complete monster. He probably deserves to be at the top of the Heisman list right now. Michigan State will have its chance to prove all the doubters wrong about being in the top 4 if you don't think they deserve to be there like the AP says they shouldn't be. So I have them, I believe, at 5 or 6, around that range. They still got to play Ohio State. They have 2 ranked opponents, I believe, coming up, still left in this season. So they can prove their mettle, right? But either way, I have them number 2, and then number 1 it's a no-brainer. It's Georgia. Look, they played like 4 top 25 teams. They looked better week in and week out after the Clemson game, to me, and they just continue to dominate week in and week out. They have the best defense in the nation. Now, I will say this: I don't think they're just unbeatable. Their offense has struggled this past week. Stetson Bennett, I believe, had 2 interceptions with no touchdowns. I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that's what it was. So they do look like there is a weakness. There's a chink in the armor there. It's not like they're unbeatable, but that defense is something serious. Definitely historic, to say the least. But either way, my top 6, Georgia 1, Michigan State 2, Oklahoma 3, 4, Ohio State, 5, Alabama, and Cincinnati 6. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff I agree with, and I was actually becoming more sold on Ohio State. I wasn't really sold on them till they come back and beat Penn State last week. You know, they were down early.
Yeah.
And they come back and they won the game. They won the games in front of them that they were supposed to win in order to get themselves back in consideration. So I was like, maybe Ohio State does deserve to be in the top 4 now. And Cincinnati struggled with Navy, and then they didn't look enormously great against Tulane.
No, not at all.
If Cincinnati wants to, I know people don't like the style points thing, but with their schedule, they're going to need style points.
A lot.
I actually agree with you dropping them out of the top 4 probably. But at the same time, like I said, a guy on my podcast the other day, I think his name is Thunder OU, he pointed out that Ohio State beat a pretty bad Penn State team right now. They're not the same Penn State team that we saw earlier in the year that beat Auburn. They've changed a little bit. I think, did you say the quarterback was back to 80% or something?
Yeah, Clifford, he's not completely healthy, but he's not bad either. Like, Clifford was never the thing that made that engine go, though. It was always the defense, in my opinion. That's why I won't penalize him for that. That's just my opinion, though.
Yep. Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, I figured, I'd cut Ohio State a break, and since they beat Penn State and basically have done what they're supposed to do, I was going to put them back in the top 4, but I'm sort of waffling back and forth whether to keep Cincinnati in the top 4.
Yeah.
So, and Michigan State, I'd almost forgot about them being undefeated until you said something.
Yeah.
Michigan State still sort of snuck up. So Michigan State definitely deserves to be in the top 4 along with Oklahoma. Like you said, you can't penalize them for being undefeated. If you struggle, that's one thing. But if you lose, that's where you got a problem. And they haven't lost. So,
yep.
I mean, how can you penalize them at this point? And most of the games, except for the Kansas game, Caleb Williams has looked great. So I would definitely put Oklahoma in the top 4 as well.
He looked good in the Kansas game. The problem was finishing the drives. It was the play calling in that game. If you ask me, Lincoln Riley got too cute in the Kansas game, especially in the first half when they would drive occasionally. But I felt like they were relying, or I don't say they. You know what? I'm going to say that I felt Caleb Williams thought he had to do too much, and it affected that game a lot. And then he realized I do have a decent running back. I have good receivers to throw to. Like, you don't need to carry the entire weight on your shoulders. And I felt like that's when you seen them open up in the second half. But yeah,
But um, my top six in reverse order from what you done would definitely, you got to put Georgia number one.
yep,
My thing is who should be number two? Who is the second best team out there? And I don't think you can just go on being undefeated alone to decide that. And that's why I know, and I'm not doing this as an Alabama homer. I genuinely believe that Alabama's the second best team in the nation. So if I'm going to rank it by who I think's the best, Alabama's got one loss. I could rank them over these undefeated teams right now and not feel bad about it. But if Alabama catches a second loss, of course they're out.
yeah.
So Alabama would be my number two, and then I would probably have a combination of maybe either Michigan State and Oklahoma or Michigan State and Cincinnati.
Yeah, and you look at my list. So I got 4, 5, and 6 is Ohio State, Alabama, and Cincinnati. I feel like Ohio State and Alabama are really close as far as talent and what they're doing week in and week out now. Because Alabama is getting better week by week if you look at it. But Cincinnati, I'm sorry, I'm just not sold on the fact that you can play 2 Power 5 team games, right? And one of them's ranked, and I'm supposed to reward you for that. I just don't understand the mindset behind it. And I have nothing against Luke Fickell. I have nothing against the team. It's just, and I can't help it. And everybody's going to say, well, you can't help the schedule that's laid out in front of you. You're right. But UTSA is undefeated. They beat a Power 5 team. I get it. They weren't ranked, but they still beat a Power 5 team. And they beat a Big Ten team on top of that. So, like, if you're going to say Cincinnati deserves all this credit, and does beating Notre Dame carry so much weight that UTSA's 24 and Cincinnati's 2? Notre Dame, you're going to tell me they carry that much weight? Absolutely not. That doesn't make sense to me. Sorry.
When you asked me 2 weeks back who I thought was better, Cincinnati or Oklahoma, I would have said Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But because they've struggled the past 2 weeks against inferior competition, and Oklahoma continues to win games against Power 5 teams.
Exactly.
Then I would have to put Oklahoma in at this point and drop Cincinnati to number 5. I probably wouldn't drop them to 6 like you did, but I would drop them to number 5. And what about Oregon? They beat Ohio State.
So,
where are they at?
I'll be honest with you. I'm probably putting Oregon at 7 because Oregon, to me, here's the problem with Oregon. That loss to Stanford killed them because once Stanford beat them, what has Stanford done? They've done nothing but lost. They've lost 3 games in a row, and they've lost them horribly. So you lost to a team that now is incapable of winning a game, which, on the contrary to Alabama, Texas A&M has done nothing but win since the loss. You know what I mean? Since beating Alabama, they've done nothing but win. So, it's kind of flipped on its head. That's why I put actually Oregon behind Alabama and Cincinnati, is because that loss is now starting to make you look worse week in and week out. And I think you have to, once again, take that stuff into consideration, which is why I put Alabama at 5, because they lost to Texas A&M, who lost to Mississippi State, who has bad losses. So
let's say we get to the end of the year, and Cincinnati's still undefeated, and they're playing a crap schedule. SMU losing to Houston didn't do them any favors, by the way. Get to the end of the season, they're undefeated. Let's say Michigan State catches a loss. Ohio State catches another loss, puts them at 2 losses, puts them out. Oklahoma catches a loss somewhere, and you have a 1-loss Oklahoma and a 1-loss Michigan State, and you have a undefeated Cincinnati. Do you still keep Cincinnati out?
If I have a 1-loss Michigan State, which means they beat Ohio State, they beat Michigan, there's no way I'm keeping that team out of the playoffs. They beat Michigan and Ohio State with 1 loss. Oh, no. What would you say the loss would be?
I'm saying Ohio State catches a loss somewhere. I'm not saying exactly. They catch a second loss, and Michigan State loses to somebody down the road somewhere, whether it be Ohio State and Ohio State pulls a Purdue like they've been known to do, or just say that Michigan State's got 1 loss and Oklahoma has 1 loss and Cincinnati's undefeated. Between those 3 teams, who do you pick at that point, since they have a loss and Cincinnati's undefeated?
I'm not putting in Cincinnati. It's not, once again, this is not hate. I'm not going to put in an undefeated team that's played 2 Power 5 teams all season. And everybody's going to scream back to last year and say the Georgia game when Georgia set out 8 starters to get ready for the NFL and barely beat them. I'm not saying they can't beat somebody. But if you're asking me that Cincinnati goes into the playoffs and beats a Georgia, can beat an Alabama, can beat an Oklahoma, then I'm going to say no. I don't think they can do it. So I'm not.
So you don't think, even if they catch a loss, you still don't think Cincinnati should be in?
No. If Michigan State has one loss, let's say Michigan State doesn't win the Big Ten, right? They lose to Ohio State, which means they don't get to go to the Big Ten championship game because Ohio State's only loss is to Oregon. It's out of conference. So Michigan State would have one conference loss to Ohio State, but they still have like 3 top 25 wins. They have more top 25 wins than Cincinnati's even played Power 5 games.
So at that point, Ohio State catches a second loss somewhere.
They're out.
Maybe in the Big Ten title game or something. That's what I'm saying. If Ohio State runs the table with one loss, they're going to get in over Cincinnati.
Yes, 100%.
If they catch a second loss somewhere, I think that's what it's going to take. I think Ohio State's going to have to catch a second loss. Michigan State's going to have to lose, and Oklahoma's going to have to lose. Those 3 things are going to have to happen.
You're going to need
them to even have a small chance to get in. And they may end up putting them in at that point just to prove they can put a non-Power 5 team in. But I don't know, man. I mean,
the problem
like you said, Michigan State would have an impressive resume. Oklahoma would have an impressive resume, and Cincinnati struggling with these teams from the conference they're in is not a real good thing for them right now.
All right, so let me put things in perspective because I know I'm going to be getting a lot of hate in the comments below already on this, but let me just put things in perspective for you. If Michigan State loses one game, they'll still have more top 25 wins than Cincinnati's played Power 5 teams. If Oklahoma has one loss, they still have more top 25 wins because they still have Oklahoma State and Baylor coming up, which are both top 25 teams. Oklahoma State's a pretty good-looking team. I think we can agree to that. I'm not saying they're great. Pretty good-looking. So once again, same scenario. If Ohio State loses another game, they're out. Hands down. You know what I mean? That's a no-brainer. If Alabama loses another one, to me, they can't go to the playoffs. That's a no-brainer. But the big question is this. What if Michigan runs the table, beats Ohio State, and wins the Big Ten? Guess what I'm doing? I'm jumping Cincinnati. I'm putting Michigan above Cincinnati. They won the Big Ten. Once again, they're going to have 4 top 25 wins at that point.
Right. Basically, what you're saying is Cincinnati's going to have to hope that a lot of teams catch a second loss.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And look, I'm not trying to stir the pot here because I know a lot of people are going to go crazy saying, well, they're undefeated, blah, blah, blah. It still comes down to one thing. This schedule has to be a huge part of what this is. That doesn't make sense to not consider the schedule as much. So with this schedule comes what? Top 25 teams built in that schedule. Now, if you would have told me Cincinnati scheduled Notre Dame, beat them, and then turned around and beat another top 25 team, or it didn't even have to be a top 25, but a good Power 5 team that should be good at the time, not in Indiana, right? Or in Illinois, but I'm talking about a legitimate Power 5 team. We'll say Auburn. Penn State scheduled Auburn, right? Penn State gets credit for being a mid-tier SEC team this year. They could end up winning the SEC West if you really think about it, which props up Penn State, which means that win over Penn State for Ohio State looks even better, right? So it keeps building up. There's layers to this. There's more than just being undefeated. There's more to this than, you know what I mean, just one aspect. But at the same time, a lot of it is built around the schedule. All right, so basically what it comes down to is, like I said, I know a lot of people are going to hate on this, is that I'm not going to reward a team for having a weak schedule, even though they go undefeated. Because it comes back to the same argument. Wake Forest. How many top 25 wins does Wake Forest have? I believe they have 0. I could be wrong, but I think it's 0. I'm not going to reward them. It's the same concept. Now, if they continue to go undefeated and win the ACC, then you might have to look at it a little differently. But the ACC looks like complete trash this year, to be honest with you. So,
yeah.
Anyways,
Clemson losing 3 games has not helped Wake Forest's cause at all.
Dude, they almost lost to Florida State.
I didn't even check that game out. Was it pretty close?
Yeah, it was close. They almost lost the game. So yeah, I believe Florida State was ahead at one point towards the end of the game. So yeah, if they would have lost to Florida State, then I would have completely remade a video on the Clemson dynasty is dead because I didn't think anybody was even capable of losing to Florida State. So
Well, Syracuse did.
I know it's Syracuse though; they're a basketball school. I'll give them the exceptions. But either way, I'm not trying to take anything away from Cincinnati. By the way, Luke Fickell's done a good job there. I think one of the most underrated defense coordinators is there, Mike Tressel. I think he's done an amazing job there. But if you're going to stack these teams up next to each other, you look at the schedules, the top 25 wins and losses and everything else, and take everything into consideration. Besides the undefeated, what does Cincinnati have? One top 25 team against Notre Dame.
Right.
I'm
Indiana
sorry.
was supposed to be a great team this year, and they didn't do them any favors as well.
But no.
So that's just what happens, man. And moving forward, Cincinnati will be in a Power Five conference. Maybe that'll help in the future.
Yep.
I don't know, but um, how long is the Big 12 going to be a Power Five conference? I don't know if this is just the last gasp for air on that or not, but that's another topic for another day. But now the committee tomorrow, when they do their top four, who do you think they're going to put in there?
I think Georgia is going to be an obvious contender to me personally. I feel as though Oklahoma would be an obvious one to put in there as well, especially when you consider what Caleb Williams has looked like since he took over for Spencer Rattler, right?
Yeah,
I feel as though Michigan State should be a top three team or top four team, sorry. So I feel like those three will be in there. And I feel like it's a toss up between the next ones. Now, who I think they will put in there, because of the media outcry. And you know what? I give Luke Fickell credit for this because you brought this up before. He has not created a media shitstorm out of this situation. He's not on there crying about Cincinnati not being, you know what I mean, not getting the love they deserve. Because a lot of people are talking bad about Cincinnati. I'm not saying bad. They're just saying they don't deserve to be in it. And Luke Fickell really has no response to it other than the fact that he's going to take care of business day in and day out. But I do believe they will put Cincinnati at 4. I 100% believe they will do that because they're going to give in to what people are saying, which is they are undefeated. They beat Notre Dame, right? And Notre Dame does keep winning. Notre Dame hasn't lost since Cincinnati. You know, they only have one loss in the season. But look at Notre Dame's schedule. Their schedule is not helping them out at all, by the way.
the polls have Alabama number 2 at
Yeah.
one, I think, and one of them's 3. And people say that the polls don't matter, but I'm telling you, this committee does look at the polls.
Yeah, I'm sure they
They're,
do.
they're, they're human just like we are. They look at the polls. They're curious,
Yep.
and I pretty much agree with all that. If Michigan State hadn't made the push they've made, I would say it would be a no-brainer that Alabama's in the top 4. But it could come down to Alabama or Cincinnati, and I think that they're going to put Alabama in over Cincinnati tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's
and
what I think. I'm not saying that because that's what I want or that's
yeah.
what I predict or what I think. I'm just saying what I think they will do.
Now, I will say this. All of this is gonna sort itself out, by the way.
Oh yeah,
If you look at what's coming up for Ohio State, right, for Michigan State still has to play Ohio State. That is no given game. Now, if Ohio State beats Michigan State, I don't believe Michigan State will have the resume to overtake Ohio State, right? So then I mean, really, I guess it could get even murkier. But I do believe Michigan State has possibly 2 losses on the season before it ends. If Ohio State loses another one, they're out. If Alabama loses another one, they're out, in my opinion. If Cincinnati
well,
loses one game, they're out. Oklahoma loses one game, they're probably out as well, as much as people don't want to hear that.
I know normally teams root against the number 1 team. That's just something that people do. But in this case, I think people need to root for Georgia to beat Alabama
Yeah.
because if Georgia loses to Alabama, they're going to put both of those teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, there's no way. If Georgia wins out and loses, especially if it's a close game to Alabama, there's no
Yeah,
doubt Georgia and Alabama both are getting in if Alabama wins out. So
right.
there'd be no doubt in my mind at that point.
So
Uh,
right now, everybody can thank Texas A&M for doing everybody a
yeah,
huge favor outside of the SEC because without that loss to Texas A&M, that game would probably just be a prelude to them playing again.
yeah, and then
They
you could,
both that game undefeated, but now that we've caught a loss, we lose again, we're out.
And you can thank Mississippi State for beating Texas A&M, which makes that loss look even worse. So to Texas A&M.
Well, Mississippi State's coming around. They're looking all right.
Don't commit. No, don't even talk about it. No, don't. No, go look at their losses. Don't come with me with this stuff. Mississippi
Memphis
State
ain't
is a
bad.
bad team.
Who? They beat NC State, man.
Yeah, they're a power five. Like they're just juggernauts. But either way, yeah, that's my top six, man. That's all I got to say on it. Who I think they're gonna put in. So if I'm thinking from what I've seen in the past, they're gonna put Alabama in. From what I've seen in the past, it's gonna be Georgia. I believe, in my opinion, it would be Georgia, probably Alabama at two, if I go by what I've seen in the past. So
Right.
it's going to be Georgia, Alabama. I think it would be Oklahoma, and I think it would be Ohio State. I do believe that's what they're going to put.
I think they'll put Michigan State in there.
So, because the committees have loved Ohio State in the past.
The only reason I disagree with Ohio State is because Michigan State hadn't caught a loss yet, and they're both in the same conference, so they play the same schedule. So I think they'll put, like you said, Georgia number one, Alabama number two, Oklahoma number three, and I think they'll have Michigan State number four.
So, I mean, I want to say they're going to put Cincinnati there, like I said earlier, but it's hard to justify all of this. I'm telling you. And by the way, if you go by the past, the way the committee's done it in the past, somebody built this model on YouTube that basically projects what the committees have done since the beginning until now. They had Cincinnati at ninth or 10th. One had them at ninth, and then they did another simulation. They had them at 10th. They had Georgia. Yeah. I believe their top four was Georgia, Alabama. I do believe it was Oklahoma and Ohio State at the time, because this was like 2 weeks ago. So either way, that's who they had.
They might put Cincinnati in just to show everybody that they can do it, but that'd be the only reason why. Because, like I said, 2 weeks ago, they were in. I had them like number three, but now with the way they've been playing, I don't have them in the top four, and I don't think the committee will either in the end.
What alleviates all this? What alleviates all of this, in your opinion?
The rest of the season?
12-team playoff.
Yeah, now that's true. 12-team playoff would alleviate that a lot. All concerned with me with the 12-team playoffs is I don't want to push them for 16 and 32.
No, I feel the same way.
I'm concerned with some of these people that they think, well, if we can get them to 8 or 12, we can eventually push them to 16. And I don't like that idea at all.
12 would be a max. If you can't get in the top 12, then you have no argument, in my opinion.
That's basically the NFL playoffs?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, if you can't get into this, I don't know what to tell you. Like a 12-team playoff, I feel like the bye week, you could adjust, you can make this right by just making a 12-team playoff. Automatic, you know what I mean? Conference winners of the Power Five get a bid in, and then you have that large or whatever you want to call it. But it would alleviate all of it, because guess what? Cincinnati wins their conference. I get it; they're not Power Five, but you can't argue they wouldn't be an at-large team in the top 12. To me, there's no way to argue your way out of that. Hell, if UTSA wins out, there would almost be a way to not. You know what I mean? There's some people that would say UTSA deserve a spot. They're 16th right now, I believe, in the AP poll. So, right. But I mean, first time ever, I think, by the way, they've been ranked in the AP poll. But, and I don't know if you know, but they just signed their coach to an extension through 2031. So, yep.
Well, that's Jonathan's top six, and what we think the committee's going to do. You got anything else to add before we get out of here?
No, it's going to be interesting to see what it's going to look like tomorrow night. It's going to tell a lot about what they think of Cincinnati. I think that's going to be the biggest takeaway. Where do they put Cincinnati is going to be the biggest takeaway. If they put them at 2, then Cincinnati's getting into the playoffs in any scenario except them losing. So I will say that.
All right, brother, I'm going to get out of here. I'd like for everybody to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Subscriptions are always most important to me. Keep me motivated. And they bring us more of those common Joes and common Sallies in the know, right?
Yep.
With that, I'm out of here. KMCA to all the other teams.
And roll Tide.